For creditors owed money by the club or for members of the consortium still waiting for their settlement after selling it to David Hall, it may sound a bit rich that he's now crying foul. But Mr Hall believes the Breakers were unfairly denied entry to the NSL this season and says if they can't play, then neither should the new entity owned by Con Constantine.
Until such time as the matter of our licence has been determined by a fair and independent body.
It's understood Mr Constantine, however, has paid both the licence fee and the necessary bank guarantee required to play, something the Breakers couldn't. But after losing his players and coaching staff to the new entity, Mr Hall wants something.
At least demanding some sort of compensation.
Mr Hall could have legal problems of his own. The consortium that originally sold him the club is expected to launch a Supreme Court action to obtain its $1.25 million this week.
Like many small rural towns, banks and services have long deserted Clarence Town. But now a glimmer of hope is on the horizon. The federal government has awarded $10,000 to Dungog Shire Council to see whether or not it's feasible to establish a rural transaction centre in the town.
We believe it's a very good thing for us, and in view of all of the limitations of a small town, we can certainly make a difference.
The 1,500-strong community lobbied for the outlet after a similar service was opened in nearby Gresford.
A lot of services certainly are provided in this community, such as Medicare or Centrelink, or we've certainly got very restricted banking facilities, so a centre like this will certainly be a great benefit to the town itself.
If all goes according to plan, the Rural Transaction Centre will house banking services as well as government agencies such as Medicare. At the moment, residents have to travel to either Raymond Terrace or Dungog to access these facilities.
We have a lack of public transport in Clarence Town, so that leads us to be isolated. So there is a fair percentage of the community that can't access those services.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Brad Swancott was just 17 when he burst onto the National Soccer League season 4 years ago. But for the last 2 seasons, he's played only one top-grade match. The big frame and form of Bob Catlin has meant Swancott has had to bide his time in the Youth League, but will start this season in firsts.
I've always been pushing Bobby, but the last 2 seasons that he's had have just, well, he got Keeper of the Year last year and he was nominated for the year before, so it's pretty hard to beat that.
Swancott gets the chance with the Sydney-based Catlin staying close to home and his pregnant wife, but it's one he isn't about to let go past.
If I go well this week, who's to say what's going to happen, so I'll just concentrate on this weekend and see what happens from there.
Ironically, the last time Brad played firsts, it was against the same team Newcastle plays on Saturday in the renamed Eastern Pride. The full team to play the season opener will be announced tomorrow, but it will be skippered by Glenn Sprod.
Excellent, all the boys are happy with Spotty. No one can say a bad thing about him, and Jockey's vice-captain, so 2 good leaders.
Marathon Stadium, meanwhile, has just over a week to be ready for its first NSL game in many years. The new club that's owned by Con Constantine will release its playing strip, name and general manager by Thursday.
Splashed in colour, the new local environment plan has fewer zones and is easier to read than Council's black and white effort of 13 years ago.
What we're trying to do is promote higher levels of activity in and around those centres, so over time businesses will be more viable and there'll be better places to live and work.
Special zones have been created for conservation and environmental areas, but economic uses are not forgotten in the document.
The draft LEP aims to promote a positive image of the city. It encourages economic growth and encourages appropriate mix of development.
There are designated economic centres in each suburb with a new category called Urban Core, promoting businesses operating from residences. And further simplification has been achieved by removing many special use zones.
They used to apply to things like schools, car parks for local shopping centres, childcare centres and so on, things like that.
For those wishing to make a comment, the LEP can be seen on Council's website, purchased from its administration building on paper or CD, viewed in libraries across the city or in a number of community forums to be held until the 15th of December. Wheeling in with positive power, 300 athletes from 8 nations compared notes on their stay in the Hunter, and it's been big ticks for Glendale Athletic Centre.
The facilities that we have been training at is fantastic again, you know, and it's been helpful so far. First few days we had to recover from the flight, but now, you know, things just, our system's going, it's going well.
I'm impressed with the huge stadium you got. You know, you don't find many tracks with 9 lanes all the way around, so it's really good.
The Paralympic Village will open tomorrow in Sydney, and while many of the teams welcome today will be there, the Hunter has earned more than just the $3 million injected into its economy by the athletes.
What impresses me most is the wheelchair accessibility everywhere. That's really nice.
Damien Smith arrived at training this afternoon, the bearer of bad tidings. The midfielder and Hunter Health physio could himself be facing a groin operation.
Last week I just felt something sort of go at training, and it's been a bit nagging, and I went and seen the physio, or the club physio, on Monday just gone, and yeah, and I could feel something wrong there.
With Andy Harper already out, Lee Sterry's now without another player for Saturday's clash with the Eastern Pride.
We've got a couple of problems, but, you know, nothing that other clubs haven't got either. So regardless, whatever 14 players I take down there on the plane on Saturday, I certainly have to do the job.
Another man looking forward to the challenges ahead, defender Glenn Sprod. The 26-year-old from the Central Coast has a new role as captain.
Without a doubt, it's an honour. Lee's shown faith in me to give me the job, and hopefully I can do a job for the season.
Meanwhile, Newcastle Breakers Football Proprietary Limited, the company which operated the former team, has been placed into voluntary administration, following concerns that without an NSL licence, it couldn't generate the money to pay creditors. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. Perfect weather and a course in perfect shape greeted players for the start of the Merriweather Pro-Am. As the name suggests, it attracted 215 professionals and amateurs alike, all vying for a share of an $8,000 prize pool.
Oh yeah, we have fun, but you know, the pros are vying for some serious money, so you know, we have a bit of fun when we finish.
There was indeed plenty of style being shown in this round of the local Pro-Am circuit, and favourites were proving hard to pick.
Jeff Wagner's been playing well. He won the Pro-Am at Branxton 2 weeks ago, but it's very difficult.
To bowls, and it was finals time today in one of the most prestigious events on the Newcastle ladies' calendar. Alder Park's Marie Harmon and Cardiff's Penny G squared off in the Annis Young consistency, both rated among the district's best. In the end, Marie took the title, Penny the runner-up for the second year in a row. And with that, it was official. The Hunters' new soccer team will be called Newcastle United. Incoming General Manager Jock Graham explained why.
Certainly a very unique Newcastle name, and the connotations of United speaks for itself.
Club owner Con Constantine, meanwhile, explained why he chose a Newcastle council officer to head up the new venture.
And if anyone can tolerate 12 councillors in one particular time, I reckon he can tolerate this board here.
Jokes aside, Captain Glenn Sprod modelled the team strip, which will be ready in time for United's first home game next Friday night.
A traditional strip with a unique Newcastle flavour in relation to the red and the blue.
Constantine wants to see 20,000 people at Marathon Stadium for that historic occasion. A tall order may be, but this is the man who helped set up a new NSL club in 8 days.
If the team that I put together delivers the way I expect them to, which I believe they will, this day will be remembered for many years to come.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
The Irish Paralympians felt right at home this morning as the rain came tumbling down in Hamilton. They're praying for better weather down in Sydney when the Games begin next week. The team has been preparing in Newcastle since Saturday, using the city's sporting facilities, the reputation of which continues to grow.
We have used all the facilities, track, field, our bocce people, our table tennis, full range, excellent facilities, absolutely marvellous.
The local people haven't gone unnoticed either.
People have been so friendly, so welcoming.
They have a lot in common with Irish people. Their sense of humour is very similar to ours. Lots of expatriates here as well.
The region has hosted more than 600 athletes over 97 days during the pre-Olympic and Paralympic stages.
We've estimated the economic benefit to the region in excess of 8.2 million.
There'll be 10 local athletes to watch out for at the Paralympics, including runner Heath Francis, powerlifter Kahi Peru and swimmer Alicia Jenkins. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
After 2 weeks of partying and parading around the country, it wasn't the most glittering of returns home for one of the Hunter's best-known Olympians, but it didn't bother Natalie Ward.
It's been a while since I've been home and it does feel great to be back.
To suggest the Olympic preparation and campaign was intense would be putting it lightly, but the aim was never for a second bronze.
To come home with any medal from the Olympic Games, you've got to be proud of it, and I am proud to come home with a bronze medal, but still in saying that, a little disappointed.
The whole campaign was a real rollercoaster ride, thrilling home run wins in the preliminary matches, plateaued by losses in the semi-finals.
Most of the girls were crying and obviously shattered because their dream of gold was so big.
It's that sort of sentiment that will drive Nat towards her third Olympics, with any thought of retirement shelved until Athens 2004.
To have 2 bronze, I want a different colour, and I'm going to have to go to Athens to get the different colour.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
I wouldn't like to think that anyone is not going to come just because they think they might get a bit wet. I wouldn't like to think that anyone is not going to come just because they think they might get a bit wet.
I think this is a dinner rack, actually. Where do we want this?
North Power Stadium will be Brett Camorley's new home ground next season with the Eagles, but tonight it'll be Andrew Johns taking centre stage. The pair are engaged in one of the toughest battles seen for the Kangaroos halfback spot, and Johns gets his crack tonight.
It's a pretty big threat, you know. Obviously, there's a number of games to be played over there, and I don't think any position really will be someone's spot, you know, solely.
Camorley started against the Cummels last weekend with Johns at hooker, a position Brett wouldn't mind seeing him keep. But Joey has eyes for the number 7 prize.
Now, for the players that didn't play last week, they'll be out to impress, and the players that did play will be keen to impress to hold their spot as well.
Andrew's brother Matthew, meanwhile, was farewelled last night by his hometown Cessnock. The former Newcastle Knights 5'8" will leave for England just before the new year to begin a 2-year deal with Wigan.
Beaumont Street is famous in Newcastle for its range of multicultural culinary delights and diverse population. That fame was celebrated in high style today at Hamilton's 23rd Fiesta.
It's to say, isn't culture wonderful? Because Australia's culture is multicultural. It's not a separate thing anymore. It's all one big, fantastic thing.
11 different nationalities joined in the festivities, including members of the Italian, Croatian, Indonesian, South American and Greek communities. Fiesta organisers say the community response to the event over the years has been overwhelming. In fact, they say one day is just not enough to showcase Newcastle's multicultural society.
We need more days. We need more time to get all the performers on. There is so much out there.
The public, it seems, agrees.
Bring the people together and happiness, and they should have more of it.
Different type of nationalities and different colour, race, and also meeting new people.
This Russian man prefers to let his music do the talking. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
In an 80-minute slaughter, the Kangaroos managed to show some mercy. Andrew Johns, though, was clearly on a mission to get the number 7 jumper back for good. His return to half-back was impressive, but the skipper came off just after half-time with an old groin injury flaring up again.
I haven't torn it or done it again. It's just precautionary. I sort of no sense of pushing myself out there when I could further into it. So I just come off and I'll just take it easy, have physio this week and I'll be 100%.
But whether he's done enough to keep the half-back job for good remains unanswered.
I've got an idea. If I tell you, I have to kill you.
Chris Anderson once said Adam McDougall would have to score 6 tries to make the Test team. He scored 5 last night in just his second game in the green and gold.
First time Mum and Dad got to see me play for Australia and to score 5 tries in front of them is obviously something I'll never forget.
His Newcastle teammate Ben Kennedy was one of 6 players to score doubles last night in a game that saw little defence, save for this tackle by the boy in blue. The fine he'll now have to pay, probably the only thing bigger than the 108-point scoreline.
The major telecommunications companies, rightly or wrongly, are often accused of neglecting regional areas, something a new player is looking to capitalise on. Launched today in Newcastle, Kuwii will soon branch out into northern New South Wales and southern Queensland, offering consumers telephone, mobile, internet and data carrying services.
As an example of our pricing, we are offering 16-cent local call rate for customers who sign up to receive our total telephony package.
The state government has welcomed another addition to the market.
We don't have to do a study. It can be seen that they are driving prices down. Even some of the moves that you've seen in the Sydney metropolitan area recently with cable modems and so forth have seen an immediate decrease in price.
Telstra is looking forward to the increased competition. QE, meanwhile, says it'll provide local jobs. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Working behind the counter leaves many people in the firing line of thieves. But a new bill passed in the upper house may be law by Christmas. It gives shop staff the right to use physical force to detain an offender on the premises.
Put the onus on the criminals to prove that we overstepped the mark, but no one's put a white line on the mark, on the ground where the mark is, so it's still cloudy, but it is a small step in the right direction.
The Shooters Party bill has been unofficially dubbed the John Lee Bill, after the businessman who was placed on a 6-month good behaviour bond for detaining a shoplifter. He says it won't solve all the problems.
The retailers, I think that gives us a fair amount of power, but I'm still wanting to push the Home Invasion Act and to make juveniles responsible for their crime.
Other business owners have welcomed the change.
I think we should be able to grab someone at least until the police arrive, hold them.
The bill will now go to the lower house and may be law by Christmas. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
After 2 years biding his time in the Youth League, goalkeeper Brad Swancott's return to the top grade highlighted Newcastle United's first game. The 21-year-old was under plenty of pressure early, but provided strong work in front of goal and one classic save. When United got within range, Asala Massey's radar was only centimetres off. Newcastle's new-look defence, though, was caught out when a failed clearance fell beautifully for the Pride. Eastern had its chances to bury the visitors, but things began to turn United's way. In fact, Newcastle stepped up its attack as the Pride's defence was brought under fire. Brad Wicherek's cross asked plenty of questions, and when Asala Massey found room for John Bonavolia, the Pride went too far. Anthony Surgeon stepped up for the equaliser with 12 minutes left. 1-1, the team now looking forward to its first home game and first win.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of hype going around and expecting a really good crowd, so it'd just be great to get out there in front of the home crowd and give them a good performance.
The weather was like the level of competition, hot, and coming off a second place last weekend, Josh Blair was never far from the lead in race number 2. In fact, in the first leg, he was jostling for the lead with the race 1 winner, Phil Clayton. Midway through the board, he was still going 1-2 for the lead, but this time it was Steve Pullen who was pushing Blair all the way. From there, the two juggled the lead and neither held it for long. After the ski, Pullen enjoyed the front running, but with Blair heading into his favourite leg, the swim, it was going to be a big finish. And it was just that. When the Swansea Belmont competitor emerged from the surf, he had a half-a-minute lead and was never going to be beaten from there. Crossing the line after the 6.9 kilometre event, you'd expect him to be a little exhausted, but there's nothing like a win to ease the pain of racing.
Yeah, now having 2 races, it's an ideal preparation to start the series. We've never had this opportunity to race before we start and sort of know how most of the guys are going, so let's go home and get some more training before we start.
The Uncle Toby series will start at Newcastle on the revised date of November 12. When the Auckland Warriors were finally sold at the weekend, players who were owed wages thought it was the answer to their prayers. But now a whole new range of problems have surfaced, with the new owners not only saying they won't remunerate back pay, they want to implement pay cuts as well.
Players signed contracts in good faith, and as did the support staff, and they should be honoured.
It's turning into an old-fashioned industrial dispute, and as president of the Players Association, Tony Butterfield is in the thick of it. He issued a letter to one-time Warrior Matthew Ridge today, who's now working for the club's new owners, stating his efforts to sign players have been both unhelpful and unwelcome, with many told to agree to inferior deals.
If this is able to go ahead without any ramifications to the licensees, then there is the potential that it could occur at any club.
And while it's unlikely to get that far, at least 2 Kiwi players have threatened to boycott the World Cup, and others may follow.
We certainly wouldn't like to use the World Cup as leverage. That has been suggested by some quarters.
For most players, the bigger the game, the bigger the nerves, and with Newcastle United to play its first home game this Friday night, most are trying not to get anxious. The state of the marathon surface is providing most concern, but in contrast, threats of an injunction to stop the side playing at all hardly rates a mention.
No, not really.
Sterry's former boss at the Breakers, David Hall, is the man behind the move to stop his former players from taking part.
Put it this way, I'm pretty sure we'll be playing a game on Friday and beyond that.
For now, though, Sterry just wants his side to perform at home, and if the game wasn't being built up enough already, the home side will play Brisbane, a side coming off a loss and coached by former Newcastle mentor John Cosmina.
You really want a result. If you could buy a result as a coach, you'd always buy a result in that sort of situation.
Sterry is unlikely to change his lineup from the opening game, save for any injuries, with Brad Widgerek the only major concern. No problems for Breakers Stadium season ticket holders, though. Newcastle United owner Con Constantine will honour their tickets at Marathon Stadium. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
"41-year-old Lionel Desange is charged with contracting to have John Stewart killed a week from Christmas in 1997. They were partners along with the Australian Olympic coach Heath Ryan in the New South Wales Equestrian Centre, but there'd been a consistent history of disputes and disharmony. In correspondence, Desange made comments like, "Your ineptitude is costing us money," while he and Heath Ryan decided to cut Stewart's salary by $25,000 and advice was taken on winding up the company. On the night of the 18th of December, John Stewart told the court that he was woken by his wife's screams before he was held down on the bed, beaten by 2 men and stabbed in the chest. At one stage, his young daughter came into the room, witnessing the attack. John Stewart told the court he was either standing or on his knees when his head was held back and his throat cut from ear to ear. He said he then fell crumpled to the floor, pretending to be unconscious, hoping he'd be left for dead. He waited, holding his hand tightly against his throat, forming a seal which allowed him to breathe. He managed to wake his 11-year-old son, who dialed 000, and Mr. Stewart held his throat together until the Westpac rescue helicopter arrived at John Hunter Hospital. John Stewart's evidence will continue tomorrow.